Good morning. Welcome back to Gravity. This is Nathan Keller. I am doing an early upload this morning because usually, this is going to be like an interview process where I'm talking to somebody trying to figure out things about like the mission field with John Jewell, Clay Johnson. Will be next Monday, 10:30 a.m. Central, and 11:30 a.m. Eastern. I hope you're looking forward to that. But today I'm actually am going to go ahead and put in a lesson because guess what I forgot last night at Wednesday night service? I forgot to push record. And so this is me doing that. If you're going to listen to this, great. If not, it's going to be copied and posted and put up on the website. This is simply recording something I forgot to record last night. So um, last night we really started talking about an important topic, but before we get into that, what I want to do is just you may have recognized this show, you may have seen this show. Um, it's rather famous. It's been famous, for years. It's now been syndicated, and now Netflix has picked it up. Uh, there's several catchphrases that come on this show. One is "cut it out." Another one is, of course, "you got it, dude." Another one is "how rude." I wonder if you know this one. "Oh my Lanta," or "you're in big trouble, mister." All those. But my favorite was probably made famous by Jesse, who said, "have mercy." You might remember that. I loved that whenever he said that, whether his car was being destroyed, is like, "oh, you're torturing me, have mercy." Or when his wife would kiss him, it was like, "wow, have mercy." I love that. Well, mercy is not just a good catchphrase. It is a really important thing that we often misunderstand. So I really want to talk about that beatitude today. And so keep in mind, it says the cost of discipleship. The reason for that is because I am currently reading this book, which you see backward. No, it's not. Maybe it is. I don't know. But it is called The Cost of Discipleship by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, in which he talks about the um, different beatitudes. And we're currently on at our church the Merciful beatitude. And so we're going to go ahead and read that. It says, "And seeing the multitudes, he went up on a mountain, and when he was seated, his disciples came to him. He opened his mouth, and he taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. And finally, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy." You know, concerning mercy, there's essentially two different definitions that you can look at, but we'll look at the main definition. The first main definition is this: compassion and forgiveness for someone. You have that, and it's within your power to harm them or punish them for something they've done to you. Now, if we imagine mercy up here and then we split it up into two different definitions, there's basically two veins of mercy. One is like when you have a bug on the floor, that beetle or something in your room, you could step on him because you can, right? Or you could just let him go. When I was AP biology teacher and I was teaching kids in school, I used to go and I'd scoop up the bug and I'd take him outside and I'd let him go to show them, you know, how all things are part of life and they all have a purpose. It's been several years since I've been in biology, so I just smash them now. Um, but you can smash that bug just because you can, right? And so to have mercy is to say, okay, though I can hurt that person or that bug, I won't do that. I'll show mercy. The other way of showing mercy is actually related to forgiveness. And so someone has harmed you in some way, and it's very easy to hold on to that and want justice, but instead you let it go and allow that to be forgiven. That's another kind of mercy. Well, let's first look at the first one. When you were in high school, you probably had a scenario where you were at a pool party or something, and there was a really pretty girl or a really handsome guy, and they weren't wet yet, and you're walking behind them, and you're like, there's a distinct desire to do something, right? To just push them in and just right into the water. That is a desire you have. It's not very compassionate if you go ahead and do it, but let's be honest, that's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's water, it's a pool party, no one's going to care. But what if instead we raise the stakes? Let's say we go up on a bridge that's 50 feet high in the ground. Now, that bridge that's 50 feet in the air really changes things, right? You have, let's say, a girl up on that bridge and you're with her, and you've gone up there and you've both decided, yeah, let's jump off this bridge. Then all of a sudden, she chickens out. Now, I can choose to help her out and just push her off and right into the water. I mean, there is maybe that temptation within me. But then I start to look at it and I'm like, that's 50 feet in the air. I don't think I want to do that. Well, this actually happened to a young lady not too long ago by the name of Jordan Holgerson. A couple weeks ago, a relative was up there with her and pushed her off. Now, she wasn't ready. This is 50 feet from the base, from the water up to the bridge. Now, if you talk to any medical doctor, they'll say that once you go above that 40-foot mark into the 50-foot range and higher, if someone is shoved off, that's one of the reasons for many deaths in this occasion. And like at these little parks and areas is when people are just shoved off, they're not ready, they just do a belly flop. This girl, she says she remembers being pushed off and she tries to right herself in the air to put her feet down, but she just couldn't do it. It had already been done. She hits the water, she disappears for like 10 seconds until finally she comes up and everybody thinks she's right, but she's not all right because she's got a punctured lung and fractured ribs. The doctor said she's lucky to be alive. When you think about that, uh, you really wished that that relative of hers would have had compassion. And when we get compassion, one of the ways I try to think of that Christ tries to teach us compassion is when he taught us that really reciprocal concept, that really circular concept of doing unto others as you would have them do to you. If only they would do unto others as they would be doing to you, then we would have that compassion. You know, if I'm up there on the bridge and I see you and I'm thinking about shoving you, I'm thinking, you know, I don't think I'd want to be shoved, and then you shove me in turn. I think I'd be okay if we just went ahead and not shoved anybody off the bridge. But to be honest, I don't think I really identify with that kind of mercy. I don't identify with that kind of mercy because I don't have a desire to crush people just because I can. So there's no need for me to do that. I don't resonate with that definition of mercy. The definition of mercy that I resonate with is actually the one that deals with forgiveness. I find that much more difficult. You have a person who has done something wrong to you, and they have hurt you to the core, and you can either just take that with you, or you can forgive, or maybe you can punish. But the act of mercy is letting that go and forgiving that and letting the concept of justice that you have go. You know, one of my favorite lessons comes from Matthew chapter 18, verse 21 through 35. And I'm going to read this, and certain parts of it that I want you to focus on will be up here. It says, Matthew 18, verse 21 through 35. Then Peter came to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. And when he had begun to settle accounts, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. But as he was not able to pay, his master commanded that he be sold with his wife, his children, all that he had, and that the payment be made. The servant fell down before him, saying, Master, have patience with me, and I will pay you all. And the master of that servant was moved with compassion. He released him and he forgave him the debt. But that servant went out and found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. And he laid hands on him, and he took him by the throat and said, "Pay me what you owe me." So his fellow servant fell down at his feet and begged him, saying, "Have patience with me, and I will pay you all." And he would not, but went and threw him into prison till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw what he had done, they were grieved, and came and told their master all that had been done. Then his master, after he called him, said to him, "You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you begged me. Should you not also have had compassion on your fellow servant, just as I had pity on you?" And his master was angry, and he delivered him to the torturers until he should pay all that was due him. Now, to be honest, I love this last part Jesus says. He says, "My heavenly Father also will do to you if each of you from his heart does not forgive his brother his trespasses." That's my favorite because it kind of sums up the whole thing. But this story is a very emotional one for me, and the reason for that is because this one resonates with me. I don't resonate with the idea of wanting to crush people just because I can, but I do resonate with this idea of being an unforgiving servant, because I myself, whenever someone does something wrong to me, it's just so easy to hold on to what they've done to me. It's easy to hold on to that pride of who I am, that I can hold on to that and then exact some kind of punishment on those people. But this story is predicated on the very concept of mercy. In fact, I think it echoes the Beatitude, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." And you see in this unmerciful servant, he could have treated someone as he wanted to be treated, but he didn't. So the question for us is, can you show mercy like Christ is wanting us to show mercy, forgiving someone of their sin against you, though you could easily exact your revenge, easily punish them? I think we can. I really think we can, but we have to do something. We have to get rid of something that's there haunting us in our brain. Dietrich Bonhoeffer mentions this briefly in his section there, that few paragraphs just on this one beatitude of mercy, when he says that the disciples not only gave up their own personal rights to be meek, they not only gave up their own concept of being righteous to hunger and thirst for better righteousness in following Jesus, but they also had to give something up to become merciful. And Dietrich says they had to essentially give up a sense of self-dignity. Now, dignity is kind of like nobility. It's like when you're raising yourself up into a status you think you are worth. And I think we kind of have to do away with our own subject of dignity. I don't know if you know, but we have a president, and I know that there's a lot of political belief on our president, and I'm not going to get into him. But the office of presidency, you have to admit, demands a level of dignity and respect. Um, I don't care if you disagree or agree with any president. If a president were to come and visit your house, you'd be like, "Wow, this is really cool. The president's here." When the president goes and visits a foreign dignitary, there is a sense of dignity that goes with him. We all have to understand that probably in the United States, the office of president is supposed to have more dignity than any other office. Now, here's the thing. There was a president by the name of Calvin Coolidge, and this is a story that came out after Calvin Coolidge died. And he's laying bed. He's in the hotel room, and he wakes up. His Secret Service in the hallway, and he wakes up to a cat burglar in his room, going through his things, going through his pockets, going through his belongings, and he speaks up, kind of, rubbing the sleep out of his eyes. He says, "No, no, wait, please, don't take that chain watch right there. It's got this specially engraved emblem on the inside, and I, it's very dear to me." And through that, he begins to strike up a conversation with this cat burglar, who is, by the way, not a professional. He finds out in the conversation that this is a college student who can't pay for the hotel, can't pay for the ticket back home, is just in debt in a lot of ways. And Calvin Coolidge goes and he gets his wallet out and he takes out $32 and he hands it to the boy and says, "This is a loan." And he says, "And when you take it, I want you to make sure and go out the same way you came in so the Secret Service doesn't catch you." And by the way, he did pay off the loan. The interesting thing about that is Calvin Coolidge was the president, and there he is. He could have done a myriad of things. He could have said, "Secret Service, get in here. Let's get this guy. Let's arrest him." And he could have thrown away the key. No one cares if I get cat burglared. Well, maybe you do, but not like the president. That's a dignified office. And he could do whatever he wanted to, but instead he decided to treat the person as if he was a human being and he himself was a human being. And I think we often treat ourselves as if we're presidents of the United States, or we know religiously better than the other person, or whatever it is, when we need to understand something very important. And this is found in Luke chapter 17, verse 7 through 10. Jesus says, "Will any of you who has a servant plowing or keeping sheep say to him when he has come in from the field, 'Come at once and recline at the table'? Will he not rather say to him, 'Prepare supper for me, dress properly, serve me while I eat and drink, and then afterward you can eat and drink'? Does he thank the servant because he did what he commanded him? So you also, when you have done all that you were commanded, say, 'We are unworthy servants. We have only done what was our duty.'" My point here is we are followers of Jesus, and none of us are so dignified that we could consider ourselves anything but unworthy. We are unworthy servants of Jesus. And the interesting thing about this is, let me share with you Romans chapter 12, verse 3. "For by grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned." And so what I want you to understand is often we do think of ourselves too highly. And so my question for you is, based on our faith, where do we get our worth? We are given our worth by Jesus, right? So now if we go back and think about that story of the unmerciful servant, I want you to imagine there's the king. He brings in the guy the first time. He owes 10,000 talents. What's that man's worth? Is it 5 talents? Is it 0 talents? What's his worth? It's a negative number, by the way. It's a negative number. He has no value. He has a negative value. That's a point of owing something. And this king, when he hears that he cannot possibly pay it, he graciously takes him from that negative value and brings him up to the, not just a balance, but a positive value. Now, why does he have a positive value? Because he takes him from owing that debt and puts him back into the status of being his servant, actively being able to do something. And so he takes this person who is completely unworthy, he gives him worth, and he gives him a duty. And then he goes out with that worth, with that duty, and does he use it appropriately? No. He goes and he gets that other guy. He says, "Give me what you owe me," and he doesn't. And he doesn't act like the servant of his king. He acts like his own servant. We have a choice before us. We can act in accordance with God's mercy or in direct violation of God's mercy. The mercy is extended to us, and hopefully we've accepted it. Now it's our duty to extend it forward. You know, I cannot help but think one of the reasons we dignify ourselves is because we see some type of a difference between ourselves and other people. You can find this in one of the greatest examples, I think, in our society is with people who have disabilities. My cousin Seth, he has Down syndrome, and I know that he has had a great impact on people, and people love him dearly. But I remember being a little kid when I was about 8 or 9 and 10, and there's a girl who brought her brother who had Down syndrome to the school, and he played on the playground. And I remember thinking now about how I felt and about how all those kids felt about playing with that kid who was different. It was almost an immediate social division. I think it's somewhere around 5th grade that you really start to see that division, maybe a little earlier, but you start to see them become more socially aware and start to think I'm more dignified, and so I don't need to hang out with this person or that person. I was reading a Focus on the Family article a while back, and it was about a lady writing about her disabled son, Jeff. She doesn't talk about what his disability was. She says, Jeff used to sit and watch on the bleachers and root for his brother. He loved doing that. And Jeff played in a special little league for kids with disabilities. We just enrolled him for the first time, and it was finally his time to shine, finally his time to play and be cheered for. So I went and I bought the uniform, and I handed it to Jeff, and he took the uniform. He was so excited. When he got home, he ran into the bathroom, and I heard all the scuffling as he began to put on his uniform, and he was fully suited up, and he ran out, and he put his arms out dressed, and he said, Mom, now I'm a real boy. And those words pushed her heart into her throat. She was assured that he had always been a real boy. You know, when I think about that story, number one, I can't help but think about how, sure enough, our society does divide people out, and we do divide them out based on social standing sometimes. Um, but I also picture myself in that story. You see, each and every one of us is an outcast. Our sin has completely separated us from the holiness of a holy God. And He gave us His Son Jesus to make us His children. One of the most important things we need to understand is you aren't worthy because of what you've done or what you've accomplished. You're worthy because of who you are. You are a son of God. You are His child, and He loves you dearly. And He's sure that while you have these days when you feel completely unworthy, He's sure that you're His child. The question now is, when you take that worthiness He's bestowed through His Son Jesus upon you, do you take it? Do you take your duty and do you share it with other people, showing them the same mercy that God has shown you? Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Thank you very much. God bless.